I admire the member for Fairfax honesty, because it's true. He has stood in the way of our cost of living relief along with all of those opposite for the past 3 years.
Hunter.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It has been 3 years since Labor has been back in the driver's seat. After 9 long years on the road to nowhere under the Coalition, this government took the wheel and has driven our economy in the right direction. The terrain has been tough at times, but we have not shied away from being up to the job. When we came to government, inflation was high and getting higher. Real wages weren't keeping up and Australians were going backwards. Those opposite had spent 9 long years driving us into the economic desert. Since we've taken the reins, we're moving in a much better direction. Inflation has fallen to a third of what it was, Deputy Speaker. Real wages are growing and living standards are rising again. Unemployment is the lowest it's been in 50 years and over 1 million new jobs have been created, the most in a single term of any parliament in Australian history. We know the drive towards a better place hasn't been easy. Australians have felt every bump and turn. But unlike those opposite, we have felt every bump and turn with them. That's why we're delivering Australians cost of living relief has been our #1 focus, and all those opposite have done is stand in the way. Speaker, the member for Fairfax says we failed to ease cost of living pressures. I think he's been talking to himself. That's the only thing I could really do to make any sense of this. I think he's woken up this morning, looked in the mirror and thought about the last 3 years and gone, wow, we have failed to ease cost of living pressures. I admire the member for Fairfax honesty, because it's true. He has stood in the way of our cost of living relief along with all of those opposite for the past 3 years. They oppose Labor's tax cuts for every taxpayer. They oppose Labor's Medicare urgent care clinics, including the ones in the Hunter. They oppose Labor's cheaper medicines plan. They oppose Labor's cheaper childcare plan. They oppose Labor's $300 energy bill relief. If it would ease the cost of living pressures, you can bet the Coalition opposed it. That's why we call them the No-alition for a reason. And whilst it's never too late to admit your own mistakes, Australians wish the member for Fairfax and the Coalition had looked in the mirror and had their wake-up call a little earlier. If they had supported our cost of living measures over the past 3 years, it would have made life easier for all Australians. The member for Fairfax also says that we have failed to manage the economy. After talking to himself in the mirror about his inability to support our cost of living relief, he's also reminiscing about the 9 long years of poor economic management underneath the Coalition. We know what the Coalition is like in the driver's seat and what it looks like. When the Leader of the Opposition was Health Minister, he cut $50 billion from public hospitals. That's $50 billion. He cut funding for Medicare. He tried to end bulk billing and made medicines more expensive. The Coalition has made this person their leader because cutting is in their DNA. We know their record and what they have planned for Australia if they can manage to wrestle the driving wheel from us and take us back down the road they love, the road to nowhere. I'm proud of our economic record and the cost of living relief that we have delivered. Australians are earning more and keeping more of what they earn under Labor. We are rebuilding our country. We have our plan to keep building and keep easing the cost of living pressures. We will provide another $150 for energy bill relief. We'll further reduce medicine prices and Australians will pay no more than $25 per script under the PBS. We will wipe 20% off HECSTATs, 20% off your HECSTATs. So for all young Australians listening to this with a HECSTAT, we're going to wipe 20% off it. They oppose, those opposite will get back to cutting. That's the option for Australians. Do we keep building or do we keep cutting? Cuts aren't going to make it easy to see a doctor. They aren't going to make it easier to go to university or TAFE. Cuts aren't going to bring down energy prices. Cuts aren't going to make it easier to raise a family or get ahead or even buy a house. But still, cuts are all those opposite have to offer. The member for Fairfax talks a big game, but let's get real on this. If the Coalition had been in charge for the past 3 years, Australians would be thousands and thousands of dollars worse off underneath what the Coalition would have delivered. Remember, they held our wages back. Remember the bills in Medicare. Remember they tried to cut Medicare. They want to go backwards, we want to go forwards, and that's what we'll continue to do as the Australian Labor Party.